if by the whip system, which he agreed yesterday evening, it exists, and you want to check yourselves so that you move in one line, you tell me because of that, sorry, let me finish. Because of that, you will go and pick up the ballot box. You pick up the ballot box and disrupt the process. The second time he did, Honorable John Jinapo, they kicked, we saw what was going on. But how do we all conveniently forget what had happened? Now, if you create an environment of lawlessness on 2 occasions, disrupting everything, how do you ignore all that if you genuinely want the probe to go further to ensure that tomorrow, whether MPP or NDC, we don't go that same route, we stop it. If what you do is that you go to the last person who acted in the manner which they did. So for me, I support that the probe should be done. But I think you should start from when they started the sitting, and it should go through the parliament and the clerk for that matter. And to be honest, you agree with me, watching the proceedings, if the clerk had been a bit firmer, honestly speaking, many of the issues that happened wouldn't happen. And I know he's also a lawyer. I actually got to know that after, because I was wondering what was going on. If you are a lawyer and you have been served with an injunctive order, and as a public officer, and knowing that judicial power rests with the judiciary, and the court of competent jurisdiction has served you an order, you must ensure the order is obeyed.
Okay, Faisal, please hold your fire. I have some questions for you, follow-up questions, but we need to go for a quick break, and when we return, the news review right here on Breakfast Daily continues. Welcome back. You're still watching Breakfast Daily right here on Citi TV. And of course, remember that we're live on DSTV channel 363, GoTV channel 182, and the show is interactive. Use the hashtag Breakfast Daily or send us a WhatsApp message. The number is on your screen. Remember to use the country code +233 if you're texting us from outside of Ghana. Now, I've been joined this morning on this segment by Alex Segbefia. He's a member of the NDC's legal team, and also Faisal Ibrahim Cisse. He's a member, Cisse. Forgive me. You see and you see. See and say, Cisse. He's a member of the MPP communications team. Now, Faisal, before we went on the break, you were responding to this issue of the brouhaha in Parliament as we were trying to inaugurate the 8th Parliament, and also what the Christian Council had said. But you mentioned, we were talking about the secret ballots and all those matters that arose in Parliament. So I have a question for you. On December 7th, when we were at the national polls, people were arrested for taking pictures of their ballots. Are we saying that the processes, legal or otherwise, are different for a national election than they hold for an election in Parliament?
What I'm saying is that as lawyers, we work with laws. Before you say a thing is criminal, you must show. And when it comes to criminal conduct, there is a test we call the legality test. It must be on record. It must be written. I must know that if I vote and I take a picture of it, and mind you, in 2020 elections, I'm sure you saw pictures of people still going in there and taking pictures and putting it on social media, both for my candidates, His Excellency Nana Donga Akufo-Addo, and also John Dramani Mahama. So these things are that, but it is not a conduct to be encouraged, because the Constitution specifically says that shall be secret. However, what I'm saying is that does the response of it is the response to go and pick the ballot box?
No, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that if going by the wonderful advice given by Honorable Segbefia is anything to go by, then you begin the condemnation right from the beginning. You don't jump it and make look and say, oh, what they did was, and in fact he said it. He said what they did, the 2 incidents were, I wrote it down, he said were legitimate. So if it's legitimate, then it should be grounded in law. Show me in the law where it says that when somebody goes to vote and he shows it to his brother or his sister, go and pick the ballot box and take it away. Where in the law does it say?
I don't think he said that.
It says it is legitimate in light of the circumstances that had happened. So I'm saying that to the extent that you can't find expression in law, whether in the Constitution,
legally speaking, but I don't believe that, and I'm not holding.
And then again, he also made mention of the fact that the MPP side were hoping to sit on the majority. We're hoping to sit on the majority side because we were hoping the independent candidates will sit on our side. Now, I find that very strange because it is not as if the independent MP is hidden or he hasn't come out. I'm sure, Abioko, you have heard him quite clearly say on a number of occasions that he is going to sit with his mother party. That's the word he even uses.
He did say so.
Mother party. So how does my senior come to say here that we were hoping, we're not even sure whether indeed he's going to sit by, and he did sit by us. So us at the time we have been electing the speaker, we were 138 because he sat by us, and you were 137. So how do you go and sit on the majority side where you, like I'm saying, you must note that we're coming from a mindset where these persons have lost an election by over 500,000 and they are wounded. So they came in there ready to do whatever it takes to ensure that they have their way. And it so turned out that we also had the bigger interest at heart, which is what? To ensure that we have a speaker, parliament process is over so that the presidential inauguration will be done. But like you know, we have also taken steps. I know we'll come back to the question of they going to court on one or two constituencies. We are equally doing the same. And I'm sure in the fullness of time, the majority will be quite clear, and then we will not have these issues.
Okay, so Honorable Segbefia, I'll come back to you, but I have some messages. Babamu from Tamale says, in short, the entire process in Parliament was a fiasco, and so all the parliamentarians must bow their heads in shame. I think they can do better next time around. My regards to Patriot Faisal. And then this interesting name, Amisti Guaso. Ex-President Mahama and his NDC are wasting their time on this court issue because they have no evidence to prove to the Supreme Court. My regards to Honorable Evans Opoku Bobie, Ahafo Regional Minister, and Honorable Yaose Boahin, Sunafo North MCE. So that's a viewer for us.
No, he didn't greet Faisal.
No, he didn't greet Faisal. He didn't greet Faisal. Eric from Kufreja says, until NDC lawyers furnish the courts with a different total valid votes cast from the ECs, their petition will be considered as incompetent and lack substance. Regards to MP for New Job in South, Michael Tribefi. And again, that's from Eric of Kufreja. It's intriguing how some people are still being economical with the truth that the demeanor and abysmal performance of some past MPs nearly caused this government, though the president did a yeoman's job himself. Instead of debating and finding excuses, government appointees and MPs should rather work hard to support His Excellency the President because they have failed him. And this is Jomo from Pokwasi. Good morning. I don't agree with Honorable Alex Segbefia. This is because the minority sitting at the majority seat was very wrong. You should remember that the 7th Parliament wasn't dissolved at the time and they were supposed to be at their minority seats. And this is from Camille in Tamale. Good morning to you and your panelists. The actions of the government party to prevent members from voting, I'm sure, started everything. The number was equal, so why were they trying to prevent someone through using the courts? So this is Ayoram from Adenta News Site's opinion. Good morning. If the standing order says secret voting, why didn't the MPs elect support that simple procedure? If you trust your members, then why get worried if it's a secret or that it's a secret? Good morning to you, your cherished viewers. With regards to the call by the Christian Council for the sanction of the legislature, I think it is very fair. However, it should not wait when there is wrong before speaking up. So you're saying that the Christian Council should speak, and I think you're agreeing with Honorable Segbefia in this regard. They should rather face the fear of God and not fear man and say things as they are. Many lives have been threatened with comments when they speak to media houses. What are they saying? Are they saying that They will keep quiet every time something bad happens. And this is from Seth. Can the panel tell us a definition of a secret? If we properly define it, then he should tell us what he will do if he's in the shoes of the NDC side. And so, Faisal, that's to you. Good morning, Citi TV. I'm very happy that the Christian Council has found their voice now. And in as much as they are calling for a probe into what happened in Parliament, they should not forget that Techiman South has lost 3 souls in the just ended elections. And that's Isa from Ofinsu. Mr. Faisal's comments is not clear. Does that mean those who were scolded on December 7th for taking pictures of their ballots, so the question I asked you, are different from Ghanaians from those in Parliament? So some of our viewers watching have questions. So I'll come back to Honorable Segbefia. You wanted to respond.
I just want to deal with 2 things, most of it. But the 2 things I think must be cleared. The meeting in that of the day, on the night of the 6th, was not of the previous parliament. If not so, none of the they will not be called parliamentary elects. It was not the old parliament. The old parliament had met earlier, had their last session, gone. This was, and the reason why, the fact that they are elect means that the powers of the clerk over them has to be looked at.
Because they haven't taken any oaths on the time.
Exactly. And so on what basis would you now become a bailiff to try and serve an injunction on someone? No. And issues arise with regard, it's a whole legal mire. And I think that in the end, common sense prevailed with him. Because if he wasn't an MP at the time, you couldn't serve him. If you decided that Parliament was in session, you never serve anybody who is in Parliament or going to and from Parliament who is a parliamentarian or otherwise. You say he's not a parliamentarian, what is your power over him at that time? Is Parliament in session? If Parliament is in session, do you serve what's it called? And my view is that even though they were parliamentary elects, you do not abuse the general principle that you do not do and serve summonses within the parliamentary sphere. But it's a nice legal issue and cannot be resolved between me and Faisal in this studio today.
I believe you're right. There are lots of legalities in there.
Exactly.
You know, and people are looking at the
clerk
loopholes,
himself went one way, and then afterwards he came the other way. Right. So you can see the dilemma that exists. Secondly, and this is now pure politics, perhaps he is not aware that we are challenging the petition of the declaration of the president. So he can talk about his 500,000. I'm just reminding him. What is clear is that they've lost their majority of 66 seats. The reason why this is happening is that we don't have to bow down our heads in shame. We can stand with our chest out. Because to lose, as one of your
the
viewers has written, that number of seats, because of the way in which they went about it and the way they have governed the country, it's a credit to NDC. So we should clap for us, please. And
just a quick one.
Before we move on to
now, it's important to state that the order, the judge directed the order to be served on the clerk of Parliament as the head of the institution. That's the parliamentary service.
Yes. And the parliamentary service stands regardless of whether there's been an election or
exactly.
And was service properly
it wasn't meant for it or the order to be served on the MP elect. It's very important that we are clear on that.
It was for him to act.
Please. It was for him as the public officer who will be conducting an activity of ushering in or engaging in an activity with MPs elect to say that this person has been restrained by me, which is the court of competent jurisdiction from Cape Coast. So it's important that we state the fact, which is that he wasn't meant to serve him or to conduct himself as a bailiff. No. Okay. It was to tell you that when you're going to elect an MP, which is meant for only MPs elect, this person cannot take part in the process. So I'm hoping that lawyers on our side, when they go to court, they must find a way of ensuring that that content also drags in the institution of Parliament, or specifically the clerk, because he was personally served in that matter.
Was the service effected properly?
It was.
How?
And it was strange. In fact, it's even good you are bringing this up. In Parliament, I had seniors at the bar asking for proof of service.
Yes.
asking for proof of service. My young mind, legal mind, or legal practice mind.
Your seniors are watching.
Oh, yeah, they are. And I'm going to say this forcefully. Tells me that proof of service normally is deposited with the court. Now, if I have a case with you in court, and I am the plaintiff, and you are the defendant, and I filed a process, the court has a copy, you are supposed to be served. Now, it's important that every document that I serve on the court, you are served also. If it turns out that the process I filed hasn't gotten to you, it means there won't be proof of service. And if you don't have the process, it means whatever action I want, if it's a motion or whatever, I cannot do in court. So then, what you say is that I haven't been served. Then the court will ask, is there proof of service? So the bailiff who comes to serve you, he will do what we call an affidavit of service. And say, court, I served this person, and when I got there, was Apioko was there, or the secretary or whoever, depending on what type of motion or what process is it. When I got there, was the husband who was there. I gave it to the husband. He signed it at 2 o'clock. So I come and I give them. The court says, okay, it means you've been served.
So it's just like if a courier service is making a
exactly,
and they ask you to sign.
Exactly. Now, in the case where you have the document in your hand, you come to court and say, court, the document is in my hand. Oh. Then the judge is asking you, where is your proof of service? How do you prove which proof is higher than showing you the document in your hand? When Africa have come to court, they are holding the process. And the clerk, that's what he had in his hand. He says, I have been served. And this is it. It was served on me on 4:55.
I have to come in
and then, oh, please, let me finish, please. Let me finish. And then he reads it to you that I have been served from the court. Now you are asking me to provide proof of service when the document is in my hand. Which proof is higher than the actual, not a statement saying that I've been served. The actual document is in my hand. And I had senior lawyers at the bar asking this, that okay, bring the proof of service. When the thing is supposed to be with the court.
Okay, so
let me just answer that aspect I need
quickly,
to say.
so we can move on to the election petition discussion.
My colleague is actually missing the point. Service is conducted by a process, and it is done by a bailiff.
Right.
The reason why they want to see proof of service, they want to know which bailiff came and served you this document. I cannot pick a document and come to you, Abioko, and say, you got it now, so you have been served. I'm not the authorized person to give you.
Right. It must be done by authorized by the courts, right?
And that is the point he is missing. It was never done by a bailiff, and therefore it is illegal. That is the point.
These are facts that you are saying here.
Faisal,
when he was asked, he said Hamza.
No, but
Hamza is the court registrar in Cape Coast. He's not.
You see,
he was asked on the day, and he answered.
You see, if you want to know the bailiff, then you just stay so that, oh, we want to know the bailiff who served you. But if you say proof of service, it's a term of art. And in legal process, what we use. It means you are looking for a and the bailiff, like he's saying,
and he showed
his name will be there. Oh, please, his name will be there. The time he served you will be there. Who received you will be there.
So it was an issue of legalese and
not legalese. It's an issue of practice, because you cannot ask the person who has been served
there was no
for
service.
Proof of service. The proof of service will be at the court. So
because,
if you go to court
what
today,
you're saying, when they ask for proof of service, that means something totally different from asking which bailiff.
Exactly. If I said, which bailiff, what time did they serve you?
But that's a different issue. The document will tell you that.
The seniors rose and said they want to see the proof of service.
Yes.
They should produce it.
Because it will have.
It didn't say you mention the name of the bailiff.
Okay, so
and proof of service cannot come in at all.
I want to hear what Honorable Segbefia says.
Well, look, for me, I'm done. I mean, I'm clear in my mind. There was no service, a proper service. And you see, it was a roundabout method of trying to get service on a gentleman who was in Parliament, who was just going to be sworn in as this thing. There are also many other issues which will crop up. You are talking of an injunction against someone. When that very same High Court has said to another person that, look, we will not grant an injunction against you because you need representation of your people. So even the court itself, I'm talking of what's it called, Techiman South. Techiman South, we also went for an injunction. It was not agreed. And the basis of that was that, you have a good case, it has to be heard. But for giving you an injunction at this stage, it will disenfranchise representation of the people. So go through your process, but the injunction will not be granted. The same High Court is now saying that, no, you don't have to represent your people. You must concurrent jurisdiction. No. Please, look, there's so much, but we won't solve it here.
Right.
All I'm saying is that what was tried to reduce our numbers was unfortunate, should not have been done. And in fact, this whole process of injunctions and counter injunctions and trying to ensure that has to be looked at in light of even the time when the president is sworn in on the timetables, because it creates a mockery of our, what's it called, democratic process.
Okay, we spent a lot of time on this. I want to move on quickly to the petition. And the New Crusading Guide is reporting that Honorable Oppong Nkrumah says Mahama's petition empty. The Minister of Information, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, has defended his side's view that John Mahama's challenge of the election results is incompetent. In the petition, the petition does not attack the validity of the election as a proper election petition should do. It merely complains about errors in the formal declaration. And this is what Mr. Oppong Nkrumah is saying. And he said this in an interview on the Citi Breakfast Show on Citi FM on Monday, which was yesterday. He insisted that Mahama's petition only complained about errors such as the fact as instead of saying total votes cast, that's G. Mensah, the electoral commissioner, said total valid votes. So looking at the discrepancy between total votes cast and total valid votes, they are not the same thing, right? Errors such as instead of saying 51.29%, she said 51.59%. Mr. Oppong Nkrumah suggests that Mr. Mahama ought to have highlighted issues that compromise the results. He says when you do an election petition and you want to attack the validity of the election, you make the case that the election was defective in this number of polling stations or this number of places. However, he said Mr. Mahama was only complaining about the error and misspeak in the formal declaration. Even the official results, which they have signed, they are not complaining about them. According to the EC, President Akufo-Addo garnered 51.59% of the valid votes, while Mr. Mahama got 47.37%. Mr. Mahama wants the court to annul President Akufo-Addo's re-election, saying that neither he nor the incumbent attained a clear majority during the 2020 polls. He said this is because of the omission of the Techiman South constituency from the provisional declaration of results. So, of course, I'll start with Honorable Segbefia. You're a member of the legal team. Let's look at the issues, because you know the petition very well. What are some of the issues that have been raised? And does this statement by Honorable Oppong Nkrumah tally with what you've submitted to the courts?
Well, for a start, I don't expect him to say anything different. I mean, why would he say that we have a good case? Or we have he'll not. He'll definitely. So I take everything he says with a pinch of salt. They've put in their defense. We've seen their defense. We think likewise of their defense. So they are on one side, we are on another. And the beauty of it is that the court is going to be the arbiter of the issues.
Absolutely.
We looked at the case that was before us, and we took cognizance of what happened in 2013 when about the results of 2012. And we were aware that where they had almost 10 months to run a case, which in the end didn't get them what they required. If we went down that very same road, we will most likely end up in the same place as they did. Because even though you could possibly show on paper that, look, if you took out this number of votes for overvoting, this number of this for that, on paper you would have shown that John Mahama had won the election. You still had to wait for the court to decide what they would take out or what they wouldn't take out. And so you can still run with that up to a point, but we were handed, we say, a brilliant argument because of the demeanor and the actions of the chair of the EC. She's the returning officer, and she has quite a bit of explaining to do, because at the moment we've got so many figures banded around that we're actually not sure which one we are supposed to rely on. And so long as we can demonstrate that actually one of those, which is the first one and the main one, which is the one which has been gazetted, demonstrates that nobody had 50% at the time, we are clear in our mind that the best that can be done is a runoff, or you then have to look at all the figures again. So, because at the end of the day, we are not even sure which figures matter now. There have been so many changes, and that cannot be right. So you cannot be saying that, look, okay, it's almost as if we have an answer, and now we are going to try and set the question to meet the answer. So you've decided that you must get over 50%. So you keep changing figures, and you're forgetting that if you change one here, you must change this one. And if you change this here, you must change that. Even the collation was not correct. So we know our case, and we are taking it to the court. We are confident that the court is going to agree with our posture.
Okay.
And that is where we are. I'm not about to try and discuss the whole case. They don't agree with us. They are putting an interpretation on how we should run our case and how it should be dealt with. We've decided that if you've been given 42 days to run a trial, you cannot sometimes half a loaf is better than bread.
Absolutely.
Excuse me to say. So, as a joke, but we must run the best case we can in that 42 days to get us a result.
Okay, and you're confident?
We are confident that we have done
case.
just that.
Okay. Faisal.
Yes.
Why? So I mean, Honorable Nkrumah has made the statement.
Right.
Why has the MPP? I mean, of course, these are his words, and we've also heard even the president himself stating that he feels that the case is baseless. You know, why has the MPP taken this position?
Well, before I do that, let me just indicate that Honorable Segbefia did make or question this act of going to court to seek injunction against one MP or the other. Just a very quick one. It's interesting to note that it was a game they started. You recall in the Hohoe constituency case, they went to court first, the whole High Court, seeking injunction to prevent Honorable John Peter Mewu from being sworn in as MP or holding himself out as MP-elect. But he's there advising that those games are not too good. I think it's an advice which is good, and we all learn. Now, coming back to the issue, the first question you ask yourself is, why will a citizen file a petition against a presidential election? Now, this is expressly stated in the Constitution, Article 64(1), and following from that, the judiciary created this manual. If your cameraman could look at it, that is what we call the Manual on Election Adjudication.
Yes.
Okay. So yes. So this manual basically contains everything, all the do's and don'ts as far as election petition, both presidential and parliamentary election challenges concerned. Now I'm going to read from page 41. In construing what Article 64(1) says, the last sentence says, and I quote, in other words, the election, that is presidential election, may be challenged only by the person who alleges that he was the winner at the election. Now listen to this very clearly. It says that the person who can challenge the presidential election results or declaration or whatever is the person who is saying that I won. So if you have this understanding, this constitutional understanding of why you should come to the Supreme Court to challenge a presidential election, then you must declare that you are going to say that I, John Dramani Mahama, former president of this country, I won the 2020 presidential election, but the EC wrongfully, illegally declared somebody as the winner. This is what the manual says. And I'm quoting from the manual. So when someone tells you that the petition that is before Parliament is empty, he's not wrong at all. Because the petitioner is not saying in all the reliefs, the declarations they are seeking, and the most important one, which is very important for them, which is the relief F, is for a rerun of the election between him and then the EC. As it stands now, I'm sure you're aware there was an error.
Yes.
Instead of stating the second responded, they said the first.
Just like you did.
But it appears to be an error which the court will recognize that as humans we make mistakes, and so they will allow them. And I'm sure our side will not even oppose it. Now let's come to the meat of the issue if you've been taken to go. And let me also say that we are not here to adjudicate the matter. That is clearly not that's not clearly what I would seek to do or what we ought to even do. Now the overriding principle for every election, which we have learned over time, from the 2012.
We're almost out of time. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, give a lot of time to your uncle.
Oh,
you see.
Please. I was so short.
Anyway, the overriding principle is this: elections are won at the polling station. If you don't have question as to what transpired at the polling station, then you must seek three things. That you are going to raise breaches of our electoral laws that are substantial, that are fundamental, and they have materially affected the results. If you say the EC chair comes to say that instead of mentioning 30,112, mentions 30,434. It's also instead of total valid vote, she mentions total vote cast, which she corrected. Now the Constitution is very clear that we can only declare a president based on total valid votes.
Absolutely.
And not total vote cast. Is the NDC telling us that it's possible for total valid votes to be far more than total vote cast? Is John Mama telling the court that it's possible for us to accept the declaration on the 9th that total valid votes is far more than total? Is it possible?
Are you trying the case?
No, I'm not trying. Oh, I'm just asking practical questions. So it's not possible. What it means is that clearly, and mind you, they devoted 30 paragraphs out of 35 paragraphs of their petition merely on the declaration which the EC woman had come to say that I heard, and so I made the correction. The results have been gazetted. And mind you, again, on the 9th, the Techiman results was not declared at the time or wasn't ready at the time. As we speak, it has been. How do you go to court and go and say that, oh, she even said that if you give 120,000 of the total valid vote or total vote of Techiman to Don Dramani Mahama, he will still not win. And you raise this supposition, assumption, which he told us we shouldn't do, assumption to court and expect the court to grant you your wishes. Clearly, like I say caretaker Minister of Information has said, clearly, the NDC will have a long battle to prove that.
Okay.
In fact, and let me also add, I'm hoping that the court will even look at the preliminary legal objection that we are raising, because we don't think that it meets even the test. Okay. It's about validity of the election. They are talking about declaration.
Okay. So let's see how this plays out. I mean, the issues, the courts in the end will decide. So ladies and gentlemen, this is how we end today's edition of the News Review segment. I was joined by Honorable Alex Segbefia. He's a member of the NDC's legal team, and of course Faisal Cisse, a member of the NPP communications team. It's been a joy, a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. The health segment is up next.
There is no promise we cannot keep. There is no commitment we cannot honor. There is no delivery we cannot guarantee. There is only one Bethel Logistics Company Limited, a licensed international freight forwarding and clearing agent, a trusted global brand with an extensive network for the movement of air freight and ocean freight worldwide. We are the trusted